Good Thursday afternoon to you. I hope your day's off to a great start. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. A little bit later in the show, we'll be joined by Indians beat reporter Mandy Bell. We'll talk about the Indians getting ready to start that 4-game series with the Astros and trying to stay afloat in the playoff race in the American League Central. But we begin by talking Browns football. We're joined by Jeff Risdon of BrownsWire.com. And Jeff, first topic, a Bleacher Report about youngsters in the NFL who could blossom into stars in 2021. Among the 7 mentioned, quarterback Baker Mayfield.
He belongs on the list, quite honestly. It's if he hasn't emerged already, he's certainly on the cusp. This is a guy, he did set the rookie touchdown passing record a couple seasons ago. This seems to get forgotten. It seems like a lot of people forgot that he was pretty good as a rookie, and then was good again in his 3rd season when he had much better coaching and much more stability around him. Yeah, if that's what it takes to break out, I mean, if he's still going up, and I think we would all agree that his he's still climbing the ladder of success. It's going to be pretty impressive if he breaks out from where he's been. This is a guy who's done a lot of great things already in his first 3 seasons. Led the team to a playoff victory and darn close to beating a team that wound up in the Super Bowl in another playoff game. Did it with adversity all around him. My goodness, if he's still breaking out, let's enjoy the ride, because the Baker Mayfield rocket is already taken off, and I think they might be getting onto it a little bit late, quite honestly.
So Corey Davis, Noah Fant, a couple of other names on that list. And Jeff, we've talked about this a little bit. How big of a deal is it? It's going to be the first time that Baker Mayfield has been in the same system with the same players for 2 years in a row. To me, I think that's huge.
I think so too. We've seen it happen in the past where quarterbacks have finally gotten some stability. They click with their coach, they click with their teammates, and it just takes off for them. And we're going to see that with Baker Mayfield. How much of an advantage it will be going into this offseason and going into training camp, which is coming up very soon. And he doesn't have to learn a new playbook. He doesn't have to learn, okay, I have new receivers. Okay, well, where does this guy like the ball when I throw him a 10-yard out? Does he want it, at his feet, at his shoulder? Does he want it where he's turning to this way? All those things they've worked that out already. So they can fine-tune what they're doing already and maybe get a little bit more creative, open up the playbook a little bit more. And I think, just having the same voices in his ear too, that's going to make him a lot more comfortable. The last offseason was crazy with a coaching change and with COVID protocols and with everything that changed throughout the offseason. It's going to be so much easier for him. It allows Baker to focus on being the best Baker that he can be. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think he's going to get tabbed by a lot of places, not just Bleacher Report, as a potential breakout candidate. And I quite honestly, I think it will come to fruition, and it will be a little bit disappointing if it doesn't. If the stability proves to not be an asset, that's going to be a little disappointing. But I don't think we're going to have to worry about that. I think the stability, having all those wide receivers, it looks like Odell's going to be healthy. He's got Jarvis back. He got, Hollywood is back in the fold. They added some speed in Anthony Schwartz. It's going to be fun to watch this offense operate with some cohesion to it, because they did not have that last year. And there were times when it showed, quite frankly. And I think that they're going to have not so many rough points this year.
The other thing is Baker Mayfield, they picked up the 5th-year option, but he is due for a contract, and a pretty significant one. There's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Jeremy Fowler, Browns reporter for ESPN, had this to say about the timing and the structure of Baker Mayfield's deal.
I've talked to execs who think that Baker Mayfield's deal is the easiest to do because Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen are considered more in that top 5 to 7 range of quarterbacks in the league, a little bit of a higher tier, proved a little more, and then Mayfield's money might be a little more manageable as a result if the Browns can get it to the finish line. But Mayfield is hardly going to take a discount here. I know the Browns are going to look very hard at this. Both sides are open to a deal, but nothing substantial has happened yet. Should be coming maybe in the next weeks or months, closer to training camp, that will heat up. And, Mayfield's situation is one where the Browns value him and believe he has a higher ceiling than he's hit. They're not going to hold his 2019 rough season against him because the Freddie Kitchens era was a bit of a mess. They believe he's got another gear he can reach.
And, Jeff, I agree. I agree with pretty much that whole – that's a good summary of where the Browns stand with Baker Mayfield.
It really is. And you saw the graphic at the bottom there. 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in crunch time last season. That's why he's going to get locked up. And I am not worried at all that they're not going to reach a deal. I expect something to be done, if not before the season, shortly after the season gets wrapped up or gets underway. And one of the things that Fowler brought up was Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. And they probably are in a bit of a different tier right now in terms of NFL perception. But they're still impactful on Baker Mayfield. You've got to get the contract for Baker Mayfield done before they sign theirs, because price tags only go up on the quarterbacks, even if they don't deserve it. And Baker certainly does deserve it. But if Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen sign their contracts first, that only raises what the Browns are going to have to pay for Baker Mayfield, because he's going to argue, and his agent is going to argue, and correctly so, by the way, that he belongs with that tier. He belongs in that conversation. He belongs in that money bracket. And if you get it done first, that sort of preempts that whole argument. And so I hope they get it done. As Fowler said, don't expect anything before training camp. But once training camp heats up, it's going to be a question every day. And I will be one of the people in Berea asking it every day. When's the extension coming? How's the progress going? They're going to get annoyed with it. Fans, you'll probably get annoyed with us asking it, but it's a big deal. Because, again, the longer they wait, the more the price tag goes up. So it behooves the Browns to get it done before Josh Allen signs in Buffalo, and that will happen, and before Lamar Jackson signs in Baltimore, and that's certainly going to happen. So, yeah, they got to get this done. And he's very deserving. He might not have the high end that they've shown thus far, but my goodness, as we just talked about, and as Fowler noted there as an independent source, they believe it's there. I think we all believe that it's there for Baker Mayfield. I think we're all in eager anticipation to see that it happens for him this year. And boy, if it happens, if he progresses from 2020 to 2021 the way he did from 2019 to 2020, that price tag, you better get it locked up now, because you might not be able to afford a lot of people around him if he has the kind of season that I think he might have.
Yeah, another interesting angle to this is brought to us by Brooke Pryor. Now, Brooke is a Steelers reporter for ESPN, but she covered Baker Mayfield very closely at Oklahoma and has this to say about just his mindset.
Baker Mayfield is a guy that always bets on himself. You saw that when he turned down scholarship offers to walk on at Texas Tech, then decided to walk on at OU, have to sit out a year. And when he bets on himself, he is motivated by people who said he couldn't do it. When I went into OU's locker room after they renovated everything, there was a list beside his locker that he had written in dry erase marker of all the goals and all the people who slighted him, something that motivates him. And he's done this throughout his career. When they were in portable trailers, he kept that list on a piece of paper. And so look, if the Browns are not offering him the money that he thinks he's worth as a franchise quarterback, best believe the Browns will go on that list. It's going to motivate him through the season. And there are those I've talked to in the league who believe that the next quarterbacks coming up could be making Mahomes-type money. So if Baker Mayfield sees that ahead, why would he take the easy or the safe option now? He's never done it before. Why would he start now?
Again, Jeff, very valid point, and it's one of the things that Browns fans in Cleveland likes about Baker Mayfield.
That's why he's great. That's why he's one of us. That's why we embraced him, because he has that chip. Being from Northeast Ohio, you understand it. You understand that there is that you need that. You take that negative energy and funnel it towards beating the Steelers and beating the Ravens. Yeah, he's all about that. And that's why I think that's why he embraces being part of Cleveland. And I don't see him taking that away. And I do think there's a happy medium, because you're right. She did make a lot of very good points. He is driven by the slights and by the negative energy. It fuels him. It feeds him. There's a way, though, to give him the money and still keep that going. Pay him now and say, hey, Mahomes is still making more than you. Dak Prescott's going to make more than you. There's a chance that Kirk Cousins could sign for more than him, even if the Browns give him what he asks for. There's always going to be people that are making more than him that he feels that he's better than, and rightly so. I think he should probably keep that chip on the shoulder. Hopefully the Browns don't wind up on that list of infamy there, because you want to have that good working relationship, but you do still want a little bit of, you don't want him to get complacent after signing the contract. You certainly can't have that happen. We saw what happened with Baltimore and Joe Flacco with that. Not that I would be comparing Baker Mayfield to Joe Flacco whatsoever, but you see the angle. You see why you got to keep him motivated, have something out there for him to have, like a little bit of that edge, because he's driven on that edge. He loves living on that edge, and he's proven that it's a very good spot for him to be. So giving him the money, but still pointing out that, hey, there's other guys who are going to be making more than you. I think he's going to be aware of that, but it wouldn't hurt the organization to keep that carrot out there a little bit. You're like, hey, you play like you have now. You beat Mahomes in the playoffs. Maybe you'll get another extra 1 instead of a 0 in there in that contract that has 9 digits on it, and it's going to have 9 digits on it with a lot of zeros, but a lot of big numbers at the front too.
Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com, and I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, another different take about Baker Mayfield and that extension, plus one last move in the offseason for each and every team. We'll tell you what one organization thinks the Browns should do. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to Sports4CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns football and taking a look at a lot of different opinions regarding Baker Mayfield's potential extension after that fifth-year option was picked up. Chris Canty, another guy from ESPN, former player, says it's time to pay him.
There's no question about it. I'm paying Baker Mayfield, and guess what? The sooner I do it, the cheaper it'll be, especially when you put it into perspective when those other quarterbacks in the 2018 draft class, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, are in lines with deals, and they figure to get those at some point during this summer. Listen, Baker showed you throughout the course of last season that he's capable of being able to take this team to the playoffs and win a playoff game on the road. And he had the Kansas City Chiefs on the ropes, and that was the team that represented the conference in the Super Bowl. So when you look at the landscape of this conference, I mean, the Cleveland Browns are on the short list of teams that have to be looked at as the favorite. The only question is whether or not Baker Mayfield can elevate his team's play to the level that you see from Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes. That's the only thing left to be seen. But if I'm Andrew Berry, I'm trying to get that deal done now. The sooner that happens, the more flexibility I have to keep this championship window open.
And Jeff Risdon, BrownsWire.com again. I agree with what he's saying. I starting to sound like a broken record a little bit, but
he makes good. Again, you got to get it done, and the price tag's only going to go up whether Baker plays well or doesn't play well. He's still going to get the same extension. Now, if he plays better, that price tag only goes up. So you've got to get it done. Again, the sequencing is very important. This is how Jared Goff got paid so much by the Los Angeles Rams, because they waited a little bit and the price tag went up, and it wound up biting them because they overpaid for him. I don't think you can overpay for what Baker Mayfield offers this team, because I agree with Candy. I agree with what we were just talking about, where the high end is there for Baker Mayfield. This is a guy who can lead the Browns to multiple playoff wins in the same season. I think he proved that last year. And I think, as we talked about with the stability factor earlier in the show, everything lines up for Baker to have a phenomenal season. And if he has that, again, the price tag's only going up if you got to pay him now. Get it done as soon as possible. Get it done before other people get into his ear, like, hey, maybe you should think about trying to get out of Cleveland. You might find more money somewhere else. I don't think Baker Mayfield is completely motivated by the money. I think he likes to prove people wrong, and I think winning in Cleveland would prove a lot of people very wrong. And I think that's something that sort of mitigates what we worried about in the last segment, where maybe if he gets paid, he's there's things that are there that he won't be driven. I don't buy that really. I do think that he's going to find a way to do it, and I think the way that Cleveland has embraced him and believed in him is enough that he's going to try to repay that, and also take it out on all the people who are still doubting. And there are still plenty of doubters that are out there, and there will always be that fuel, whether he's paid or not. But yeah, like Candy said, and Candy's a guy who would know, because he played on a couple of teams where they didn't pay the quarterbacks and it came back to bite them. Yeah, he's speaking from experience there. Go out, pay Baker, get it all done, take the drama away, put the drama somewhere else. It will certainly pop up. There's enough talent on this team, enough interesting personalities with talent on this team that something else will come up to take that spotlight away. Right now, nothing's really happening, and that's great, by the way. I love not having to talk about Odell Beckham being in Monte Carlo, or something weird going on with Myles Garrett, bench pressing a college student or something like that. You don't have to worry about any of those things this summer. It's been nice and quiet, and that's one of the reasons why we're so stressed out about Baker Mayfield and the contract extension that I think we all agree he's probably going to get sooner than later.
All right, so one last offseason move that each and every team in the NFL should make. This is by ESPN, and the Browns is extend Wyatt Teller. What do you make of that one?
So it's interesting because it's brought up in conjunction with the idea of also extending Nick Chubb. They're both done at the same time. And the interesting choice there is to do Teller instead of Chubb. And I kind of agree with it, quite honestly. Teller came from out of nowhere. Well, not out of nowhere. 5th-round pick in Buffalo. It didn't really work out for him. First year in Cleveland was okay. He showed some potential, but didn't show anything, and the signs that he was going to be the breakout star that he was. He was a phenomenal player last year. The team rushed for 5.2 yards with him in the lineup, 3.6 yards per carry with him out of the lineup. That's very significant. Wyatt Teller makes Nick Chubb better. Now, does Nick Chubb make Wyatt Teller better? Yeah, probably. That's probably true as well. But getting the guard and getting a young offensive lineman who fits in so well with what offensive line coach Bill Callahan preaches and teaches, and what Kevin Stefanski as the head coach wants, that's fantastic, because Nick Chubb is a great running back. You'll never hear me say that he's not a great running back, but they also have Kareem Hunt. They also have other fish to fry around him. And the drop-off without Teller, I think, is very significant. It's very telling, not to be corny with the pun or anything. But and by the way, he's probably going to be a little bit cheaper, because he really only does have the 1 year of track record, and you're banking on a guy who's an ascending talent. I think everybody knows how good Nick Chubb is. I don't think everybody realizes just how good and important Wyatt Teller is. And locking him up, A, I think it keeps Chubb happy for another season. B, you have the option with running backs. You got to be real careful about overpaying and committing too much time to running backs. Look what happened with Todd Gurley in Los Angeles. Look what happened with Zeke Elliott in Dallas. Phenomenal running backs, very talented guys. But there's a shelf life for a running back, and you don't want to be paying for beyond that shelf life. If you can franchise tag Nick Chubb or get him for 2 more seasons locked up early on, I think that's probably the way to go. But Teller is a guy that you can pay long term. He's still young. He's still, I believe he's 25 years old. Lock him up, get him under contract, get that offensive line stabilized. You're going to have some transition there at some point. J.C. Tretter and even Joel Bitonio, they can't play forever. Although I wouldn't doubt it about Joel Bitonio if he could play several more years really good. But yeah, I like the idea of having the solid line, and you don't have to worry about that. Again, with Chubb, you can franchise tag him. It's going to pay him, or give him figure out what it would cost to franchise tag him for 2 seasons to give him that extension, and then worry about that in the long term. It's much more integral to get Teller done before Chubb. I know that flies in the face of a lot of people who think that Nick Chubb's the most important player on the team, and he might be in the offense in 2020. 2021, I think they're going to diversify a little bit more, and then that's not to slight Chubb, but the offense does not work without the good offensive line. I think that's something that the entire tree that Stefanski comes from, the coaching tree. You've got to have the line in place. That was one of the issues that happened in 2019. That's one of the reasons why they brought in Jack Conklin last year, drafted Jedrick Wills. Both of those were very positive moves. Keep building that lineup. Make it so Baker Mayfield doesn't have to worry. Make it so when Kareem Hunt comes into the game, he can still be effective. And Dearness Johnson and Demetric Felton, when he's taking some snaps back there in the backfield, you got to have that line. That is more important than the running back, even as good and as unique and uniquely talented and uniquely effective as Nick Chubb is.
All right, we'll shift focus just a little bit. So most receiving first downs and touchdowns by a tight end before age 25. This is since 2006. And you have Mark Andrews, Ravens tight end, way up there. Number 2 is David Njoku, and that's a little bit of a surprise. T.J. Hawkinson from the Lions, Noah Fant, young ascending tight ends, really well thought of. Njoku's a little bit of a surprise that he's number 2 behind Mark Andrews.
Yeah, and you think about where he's at in Cleveland. He's been around for a long time. He's 2017 draft class, and he's produced. He probably hasn't produced the way that most Browns fans want, and I'll raise my hand. I wish he was a little bit more productive too, but you look at that, and he's done pretty darn well for himself. I happen to cover T.J. Hawkinson with the Lions. He's a great player. That guy is a star in the making, and you got David Njoku above him on the list. There are times when, and we've seen it. We saw it when he got in the Jets game where he got hurt a couple seasons ago. They had no answer for him. And he does still provide that in the red zone. He's the guy who can extend up vertically and get open just by jumping up and making fantastic catches that other people can't make. They've added Austin Hooper, they added Harrison Bryant. Those are talented guys, and Njoku sort of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. And he had the whole trade me, don't trade me type thing going on last offseason. That was entirely agent driven. I will not hold that against David Njoku. I hold that more against his agent. If you know who his agent is, you'll probably agree with me on that point too. He's a good young player, and we've been blessed to have him in Cleveland. I think is one of those cases. I don't know if they're going to be able to afford to pay him and keep him, because I think, based on what they've got around, he's the guy that's most likely to go and get a big contract and cash in somewhere else. And we're going to watch him blossom into a 100 catch, 1,000-yard receiver someplace else. We're like, God, why didn't we appreciate what we had when we had him? Because do we want him to be better? Yes, but he's been really good, folks. And his blocking has gone up so much. That's something that I know that we talk about in Brown's Twitter a lot, is how much better his blocking has gotten from when he came here from Miami to where he is now. The enthusiasm and zeal for which he blocks, that gets lost in the shuffle too. This is a really good tight end, and as we talked before the show, he is still so young. My goodness, he's still an ascending talent. It would be great if we could lock him up, but it doesn't. There's going to be so many hungry mouths to feed, and they've got some tight ends that are in position already who are talented. It's going to be hard to watch him go and be a really key player on another team, where he's going to be more important to another team, quite frankly, than he has been for the Browns. And that's it's a great problem to have, the fact that they can't afford all the great young talent, and it looks like he will probably be one of the guys who gets away, unfortunately. But I do hope that Browns fans take an appreciation for how good he's been, even though he hasn't necessarily lived up to the expectations a lot of people have for him. And do we want him to play better? Yes, we do. But he's also proven that he's been pretty darn good too.
Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com, and I'm going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, CBS Sports ranks the best rosters. We'll tell you where the Browns rank. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Sports4CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. We've been talking about Baker Mayfield and the extension that's due and a long-term contract that's coming up. Dan Orlovsky from ESPN's Get Up had this to say.
Baker Mayfield is going to be better. Greeny, I'm going to tee myself up, okay? Because I've sat for a couple days now, and I've listened to Mike Tannenbaum, who I love, bash Baker Mayfield. And I told Browns fans that I was going to have Baker Mayfield's back. I was going to have their quarterback's team's back. And I've heard him say he's a replacement-level player. First of all, Baker Mayfield resurrected the worst franchise in sports in America, okay? This franchise was terrible before Baker Mayfield got there. They were 0-16 the year before he got there. His first year, they go 7-8-1. He was 6-7 as a starter, as a rookie in that first season, while breaking the rookie touchdown passing record held by Russell Wilson and Peyton Manning, two pretty good players. Also playing a meaningful game in December that year. You can't replace that. Year two, I'm going to give it to you. He stunk in year two, but we all know why. Freddie Kitchens was a disaster. Then last year, everyone continues to doubt Baker Mayfield. And what does he do? He goes and completes 63% of his passes, 26 touchdowns, 8 picks, and 95 passer rating. I'm going to finish it with this. There's two guys in the history of the NFL that within their first 3 seasons have thrown for 25 touchdowns. They've thrown for 11,000 plus yards, and they've had a passer rating of 89 or more. Dan Marino and Baker Mayfield. Stop disrespecting Baker Mayfield.
Jeff, I didn't realize the Dan Marino and Baker Mayfield, the first 3 seasons. When you think about that, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, we are of the age where we do remember the Dan Marino phenomenon that he was, especially in his second season where he set all sorts of passing records that didn't get broken for quite some time. You don't think about Baker being in that rarefied air, but there he is. The numbers, they don't lie. And the fact that he's done it with, again, different coaches every season, a different system every season, hasn't really had the alpha receiver. I mean, you can consider Jarvis Landry is certainly a very talented receiver, but is he the superstar receiver? Yeah, he makes Pro Bowls, but he's not like on the caliber that the Marino had with Clayton and Duper. He probably should be regarded that, but he isn't. Yeah, that's phenomenal. I'll admit, I am not Dan Orlovsky's biggest fan. Maybe some of that is the fact that I do follow the Detroit Lions, and I'm still mad at him for running out of the back of the end zone all those years ago. But he makes great points there. You can't argue that. It's weird how people still have this narrative of Baker Mayfield being too small. The arm strength isn't enough. There's always something that people just, for whatever reason, he does too many commercials, even though they're great. You know, people love to pile on Baker Mayfield, and it's nice to see some national pundits and former quarterbacks at that giving him the respect that he deserves for being a darn good quarterback. If this guy, maybe it's a Cleveland thing, because if he did this in Indianapolis, I tell you what, they'd be building statues for him already. That's just the way it is. You know, if you look at what he did versus what Andrew Luck did when he came into the league at a similar point, you know, with the franchises, my goodness, Baker stacks up really, really well. I wish more people would realize that what Dano is saying, what we've been trying to say on Browns Wire, what a lot of people in the Browns media have been trying to say. The guy's really good, folks. Appreciate it. Get on board. Stop the doubt. It's there.
Well, here's another thing. CBS Sports ranks the rosters by talent, and Buccaneers 1, Chiefs 2 Super Bowl teams. Browns are 3rd, Rams are 4th, Bills 5th. So again, I think that speaks to the way they've rebuilt the defense this offseason.
It does, and we haven't given much attention to the defense today, but they're loaded. And I think that the addition of Jadeveon Clowney, and we talked about it when they first signed him. I came on here and I poo-pooed it a little bit. I wanted to keep expectations down a little bit. So far, everything has been good. Now it hasn't been training camp yet. We haven't seen him out there in full pads attacking people. But my goodness, I think that and adding Takk McKinley and the exciting rookie class with Greg Newsome, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, even Tommy Togiai in the middle, you know, and getting guys that I don't think a lot of people realize that the Browns had. Getting Grant Delpit back, getting, you know, Greedy Williams looking like he's going to be able to play. Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces and parts to it, but the talent is there, and I think that's part of the component that makes it a complete team. I'll switch a little bit. You didn't mention the Baltimore Ravens on your list. You certainly didn't mention the Pittsburgh Steelers. there are more questions for those rosters overall than what there are for the Cleveland Browns. Yeah, they finished ahead of Cleveland last year. Don't be surprised if Cleveland finishes ahead of both of those teams this year, because there are still ton, and spoiler alert, they're both in the top 10, and Baltimore certainly belongs there. I don't know about Pittsburgh's offense. That scares me a little bit, but the fact that the Browns have a complete team that can win with offense, can win with defense, they can win by running the ball, they can win by Baker Mayfield throwing the ball to Odell Beckham and David Njoku, and a plethora of good talent out there. They have decent special teams too. They have some losses to replace on that, but they have good candidates in place to replace that. This is a really, really good football team that should be talked about as one of the best in football. And it's nice to see them getting the recognition that they are considered, in fact, one of the best teams in football, because they belong there. Now they do have to go out and prove it, but I think there's no reason for Browns fans to worry about this team falling back. They're not going to go 6-11, barring a freak injury outbreak or just something unspeakable happening. This is a playoff football team that should expect to be playing multiple games in January this year, as they did a year ago. They can build on that, and the roster is there. Give Andrew Berry a lot of credit for locking up people that he needed to lock up, bringing smart choices in that fit well around the central principle of having smart, intelligent, hard-nosed, tough football players. That's what they've done. It's a great team. Let's enjoy it.
All right, before we go to break, quick question here. Which rookie makes the biggest impact for the Browns, do you think?
That's a good question. And we actually had this debate on Browns Wire, myself and the other editor, Jared Mueller. He chose Tommy Togiai. And I don't know if that's the right choice or not. I would lean more towards Greg Newsome, because I think he plays a higher profile position. I think he's going to get the reps. I do think he's going to beat out Greedy Williams for that top starting corner spot. Togiai, though, he's going to play. He's got a great opportunity to do a lot as a rookie. The defensive tackle position is one where they are a little bit weak. What do we have in Andrew Billings coming back? What's there with Malik Jackson? Larry Ogunjobi's gone. Sheldon Richardson's gone. There's a chance for him to make a name for himself. And the way he played at Ohio State, and the style that he plays as a facilitator, a guy who can lock up blocks so linebackers and ends can make plays, I think plays very well in this defense. I'm just not sure that he's going to get the total opportunity to show it right away. So I would go with Newsome. And it's interesting that we didn't even talk about Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who has a great chance to play a very significant role with this team. But I don't think he's going to have the most significant look. And for Anthony Schwartz on offense, Demetric Felton, I do think deserves to mention. I think he's going to be the return man. I think he is going to get some reps on offense as a receiving-oriented back and as sort of a gadget-type player, and they can use that. But my money is on Newsome right now. But again, you can make valid points for some other guys too.
Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com and I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. On the other side of the break, we'll talk about something that the Browns need to be concerned about with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Sports4CLE. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com. Jeff, and I know you wrote an article about JOK and his versatility and just some things that the Browns, and we actually heard Joe Woods kind of mention that he was going to be aware of this. Take us through that and just kind of how you went about doing that and so that they can use JOK most effectively.
Yeah, so he was great at Notre Dame in a variety of different roles. And one of the things that I am worried about is that the Browns are going to try to use him in a variety of roles as a rookie. And we saw what happened in Arizona last year with Isaiah Simmons, who's a similar type player. He was touted as a positionless player. Well, that proved to be a problem for the Cardinals. They couldn't find any spot where he was really good. They kept moving him around where he would play as an outside linebacker on first down. They play him in the slot on second down. They play him at safety. They move him around as an edge. And he never really got comfortable doing any one thing. The Browns don't need a guy who can do everything. They have specific roles that they can use. The JOK skills do very well. A spy against mobile quarterbacks. We just talked about Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. They need a guy who can match up with those guys. They need a guy who can cover a tight end and carry him in the zone or man-to-man. If a tight end flexes out into the slot, you've got a linebacker who has safety coverage skills there who can run with him. Those are two roles that he can absolutely play. If you're asking him to also be the Mike linebacker, to also be a box safety, where he's attacking the run between the tackles, that's putting too much on his plate. Let's let him get good at a couple of things first before you ask him to rely on the athletic versatility, the sideline to sideline range, the ability to rush the passer from any number of gaps. I know it's tempting to have that, but there are other guys on this team who can do those things. Let's let him get really good at one or two things as a rookie before you unleash the entire package. Because as you saw with Isaiah Simmons a year ago, this was a guy who was the preseason favorite for Defensive Rookie of the Year. And he wound up barely starting for a lot of – he only played 376 snaps. Quite frankly, he didn't earn more than that for the Cardinals last year. And that's not a very good defense either. The Cardinals had another guy in Hassan Reddick a couple of years before that, another guy who could do a lot of different things. Proof that he couldn't actually do any one thing well enough. Those are cautionary tales. It's great that JOK has the ability to do a lot of different things. Let's let him just focus on a couple of things that he can get really good at before you broaden it out and worry. Don't give him too much. Don't put too much on his plate because you don't have to. There's a lot of other talented players on this defense who can do things that you want him to be able to do, but you shouldn't have to have him do.
Yeah, and as we kind of couch that, Joe Wood said he has to make sure that he doesn't go crazy with him early. So it's good to hear that. All right, now there's some guys that are banged up in that secondary, coming off injuries. Of course, Delpit, you've got Greedy Williams. Greg Newsome was banged up last year. A guy like Stephon Gilmore, held out from minicamp, wants a new contract. Browns do have some money under the cap. I think it's $7 million this year, would probably want an extension. Do you look at that, or do you kind of go, we already got a lot of guys we got to extend and take care of? I mean, Gilmore's an intriguing guy, though. That might be one of the best corners in the league.
He's a really, really good football player, and he would make the Cleveland Browns a better football team because he is a more proven commodity than you're getting in your first-round pick in Greg Newsome. And Greedy Williams, I think at this point, you have to wonder, he's got to show you that he belongs on the football team at this point because he was okay as a rookie, certainly wasn't anything special. And then he missed last year with an injury that's quite frankly scary. Having nerve damage in your shoulder and losing feeling in your arm, I don't know if you can trust that. If you can get a guy like Gilmore, the finances are a big deal, though, because as we talked about earlier, you can't extend everybody. This team can't afford to pay everybody that's great on the football team right now. That's one of the things that we're gonna have to change. Our mindset is we haven't signed people to stay in a long time. Now there's so many people that need to stay that there's a limited amount of budget. This isn't the NBA. People don't take less money to play with their friends and play with superstar teams. That's just not what happens. So Gilmore would have to be amenable to playing that 1 year on the $7 million, and the Browns would have to be willing to part with something where they're taking a chance on 1 year. It's more of an all-in move. I personally am okay with that. If it costs a second-round pick in 2022 to get a guy that helps you win an extra playoff game, yeah, sign me up for that. I want that. And I'll deal with the aftermath on that later. We'll sort that out. There's always ways to manipulate the cap to fudge things around. If you can add a guy like Stephon Gilmore, who's a really, really good football player, he's as good as Denzel Ward and more reliable than Denzel Ward at this point. I don't see how you say no to that. If the opportunity presents itself, that's one that I would go for.
Yep, I would agree. Again, it'll be interesting, and those are the reasons that Andrew Berry gets paid the big bucks. He has to make those decisions and find a way to make that work out. Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com, as always. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, remember, Jeff Risdon, you can read him on BrownsWire.com as well as LionsWire.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we shift our attention to the Indians. We'll be joined by Indians beat reporter Mandy Bell for Indians.com as well as MLB.com. We'll talk Tribe as they get ready for that 4-game series with the Astros. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Sports for CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. We're going to shift our focus from the Browns over to the Indians. Tribe getting ready to start a 4-game series at home against the Houston Astros. A scary sight yesterday in Game 1 of that doubleheader against the Tigers as Jose Ramirez fouled the ball off of his cheek. He went to the hospital, came back middle of the second game, was good to go. Here's what Terry Francona had to say about Jose Ramirez.
He's unbelievable. I mean, he went over to Lutheran, got checked out, and they said he was fine, which we thought, but we just needed to get him checked out. He got back about halfway through the game, and he said, "I'm ready to go in." And we were actually going to let him hit for Chang in that one inning when Rivera struck out with first and second. He was going to hit for Chang there. Kid's unbelievable, man.
Let's welcome in Mandy Bell, beat reporter for the Indians, for Indians.com as well as MLB.com. Mandy, I've seen a lot of baseball, and I have never seen somebody directly foul a foul ball off their cheek. And he stayed in the game. You could see it swelling and wanted to go back in after everything was checked out.
Yeah, it was really, really strange. Like you said, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like that. I know when we were talking to Bobby Bradley last night, asked him about what's that moment like. He said, I don't know. We couldn't really tell. It was scary because we didn't know. Was it straight off of his face? Did it hit the bat and go to his face? And it did hit the bat and go to his face. And I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. He dropped down, and that's just the worst case scenario for the Indians right now. I mean, at any point they would struggle to afford to lose his bat in that lineup, especially now whenever you're so close to having Franmil back and just trying to get this lineup together. So that's a scary sight, and you could tell that he was getting looked at and have maybe a little bit of blood that was in his mouth a little bit that they had to wipe away. But as soon as he stood up, he put his helmet back on, and the crowd, just the limited crowd that was there waiting out that rain delay, they went nuts whenever he stepped back in the box. He's crazy, and I don't know how he got back in there, but like Tito said, he came back in that second game, and he was ready to pinch hit if needed.
Yeah, and good news is it appears he is good to go. So you mentioned Bobby Bradley, and that's a guy that has come up and done a job. 21 games, 8 homers, 17 runs batted in. That's 71 at-bats, 8 homers, 71 at-bats, 254. And the key with Bobby Bradley, we've heard it all along from people down in Columbus, and Terry Francona has said it. It's, he's staying on the ball and hitting the ball the other way, and Bobby Bradley kind of understands that as well. This is what he had to say about his approach.
Just in a good spot. We're not trying to do too much, leaving more of the body out of it and just reacting and using my hands.
Bobby, have you always been able to go to the opposite field with power like that? Is that something that's been a big part of your game, or is that something that has developed over the last couple of years or so?
I mean, it's been there, but the approach and things like that when I was younger wasn't there. And the older I've gotten, the approaches have gotten better, which has allowed me to use my power to the opposite field.
And Mandy, when he stays on the ball, he's a pretty good middle of the bat, middle of the order bat, something the Indians really need.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And I think Tito said it best last night, saying, well, I mean, he's driving the ball to left field as if he's a right-handed batter, and that's just a testament to him. And that's exactly what it looks like. Like he said, that's whenever he's going so well at the plate, whenever he's able to drive the ball to the opposite field with that conviction that he has. I mean, it's so fun to watch whenever he gets into grooves like this, because he's truly a threat. And it's just so fun to watch, mostly because he's a completely different hitter than what we saw him in 2019 in his brief stint up at the big leagues. He's way more patient, and all of this obviously comes with the more experience he has. He's grown up a little bit in those 2 years, but still, it just seems like he's a completely new hitter, let alone the work that he put in on his body over this offseason. So it's been just so fun to watch his transformation over the last 2 years.
And you kind of touched on this earlier. Franmil Reyes is getting close. Could be Saturday, could be Sunday, heck, could be tomorrow. What would he be? What would he mean? You know, to add to kind of Bobby Bradley, Jose Ramirez in the middle of this lineup?
Oh, goodness. He would mean a lot. And I think that this offense really, really needs it. The more that they're struggling with their rotation, just their pitching in general, you just need as much offense as you can possibly get. And that's not something this team has been known for the last few years. So having that threat of his bat, I know he's been hitting pretty well in his rehab assignment, but even if he's not coming up and being lights out at the plate, just the threat of having his bat back in the lineup does wonders for these guys, especially the guys that are going to be following him in the order. So if he's going to be plugged back into the cleanup spot and you move Eddie right behind him, I'm sure you'll start to see different guys get pitched differently, having Jose right in front of him. I mean, it just completely changes their lineup to have that another huge threat in the heart of that. So I think it looks like they're shooting for Saturday. That's what they're hoping for. They wanted him to play 3 straight games in Akron, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I know he was limited on Tuesday just because of the rain and the rain delay that they had to sit through. So they wanted him to get 3 straight. They wanted him to possibly have another off day just to make sure that he was rested, and then possibly activate him on Saturday. So I think that's what they're shooting for.
You know, the Astros come in, and that's a team that's a little banged up as well. Not quite as banged up as the Indians, but they're a little banged up. Bregman's on the DL. They're trying to snap a 4-game losing streak. Got swept by 3 with the Orioles, lost 2 of 3 to the Tigers. So, again, you don't want them to get well with here at Progressive Field, but you know, maybe the Indians can catch the Astros when they're not playing well. It's Mejia against Framber Valdez to open it. And again, the Indians right in the middle of it. You know, even with losing that doubleheader, they're 4 out of first place as we sit on July 1. So they're right in the hunt of this.
They are. And like you said, this might be the best time for them to catch the Astros whenever they're coming to town here. I mean, the Astros have been really, really great this year. I know you expect them to be good, but I think they were better than even expectations so far this year. And so to catch them during this type of a losing skid is probably a welcome sight for this team, but they're just got to hope that they don't catch fire during this. And I think that the biggest thing is just getting some decent outings out of their starting staff. I know Mejia was supposed to go on Tuesday, but because of that rain out, he got pushed back. Because he started to warm up a little bit right before the game, they thought they were going to be able to start that game. And then it was like 3 minutes before first pitch whenever they decided not to. And he had already gone through his warm-ups. He had thrown underneath whenever the rain was happening. And they said, you know what, let's not push this and let's give him an extra day. So they're hoping that would line him up well. And I think that would probably get them off to a better start, having him instead of Logan Allen, who was originally scheduled to make his first start to open the series tonight. So I think that could be a nice boost for them to at least have Mejia, who's been trending in the right direction, on the mound tonight.
Mandy Bell, Indians beat reporter for Indians.com as well as MLB.com. And I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, an update on some of the Indians pitchers who are on the mend and some guys that the Indians might go out and try to trade for. We'll explore that. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Better days are ahead. Be ready with the training you'll need to get a great job. If you or your family has experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Whether you want to improve your skills, get certified, or train for a new career, go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So what are you waiting for? Register now for online and on-campus summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
First, they said cigarettes were safe. We know how that turned out. Now, they say they didn't market e-cigarettes to teens. Fact, more than 1 in 4 high school students are vaping, and 80% say their first e-cigarette was flavored. Vaping is harmful to developing brains. The reason we think vaping is safe? Marketing. Same lies, different day. Tell Big Vape to quit lying.
Welcome back to Sports4CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Indians baseball with Mandy Bell, beat reporter for Indians.com as well as MLB.com. So, Mandy, Zach Plesac got a first rehab start in, and Shane Bieber got looked at again. Give us just kind of updates with what you've heard from the team and around about those two.
Yeah, so Plesac did get his first rehab start on Tuesday, despite the rain that was in Akron. He got it, I think it was an inning and 2/3. So he got some pitches under his belt. Tito said that he seemed a little bit fired up in his first inning. He was hitting 95 and 96 on the radar gun. So I think they were pleased with how he felt. He was pleased with how he felt, but Tito was hesitant to say exactly what the next steps were just yet because he hadn't had a chance to talk to the front office, Carl Willis, Zach Plesac, all of them together in one room. He wanted that to be a group conversation to figure out what the next steps are. There was question of whether could you just have him make one start and come right back? Could you get him up here as quick as possible? I doubt they would do that. I don't think this is a situation where you'd want to rush anything. I don't know. I don't think it would be much of a benefit. They want to make sure that all these guys are going to be healthy completely so that there's no hiccups when they come back. So I'd be surprised if it was a one and done. I think there's going to be at least another rehab start in there, but nonetheless, he's going to be really close to rejoining this rotation. Definitely closer than Shane Bieber. They were pleased with Bieber's results of his 2-week checkup. I think it was yesterday that he got another MRI and it came back that it was okay. Everything looked okay according to Tito, but he's still not ready to pick up a baseball just yet. And they said that Tito doesn't want to put any expectations on him or anything like that, but he said a good estimate would probably be another week or two before he can start throwing. But they're getting him into the point where he can start ramping up a little bit of activity just to get his muscles in his shoulder a little bit more prepared for him whenever he's going to be picking up that baseball in a week or two. So he's slowly but surely getting there, but they seem optimistic about where he stands at this point.
So, bottom line is the Indians just kind of have to survive, for lack of a better term, as far as wild card and AL Central goes until some of these guys get healthy. Interesting thing on MLB.com about potential trade targets. Trade deadline about a month away now, as we're in July, which, gosh, how did that happen? So one of the names that pops up, and this one's interesting, C.J. Cron, first baseman for the Rockies. Bobby Bradley may kind of eliminate that thing there because you'd have to find a place to play him. The thing is, he's hitting the ball reasonably well for Colorado. It's not a huge dollar figure, wouldn't be huge in terms of prospect. Is that the kind of guy that the Indians might look at, you think?
I think you sort of said it. It's tough because he is that first baseman, and it would be different if Franmil was going to be out for the year and you could shift Bobby Bradley into a DH role or even throw CJ into the DH role. I mean, you could have those types of options. But with Franmil Reyes just on the verge of coming back and would be back probably for like 3 weeks before we get to the deadline, and getting everything back in sort of normalcy with their lineup. It just doesn't seem like it would be the best fit for them to try to give away a prospect or two to try to get him in return. It just doesn't seem like that's the exact missing piece that they're looking for. It doesn't fit perfectly for them, although all the other outside factors of him being pretty cheap, if you look in the big picture of it all, and his numbers are decent enough that would be a nice addition. I just don't know if he fits into this roster perfectly for them.
Yeah, at this point in time, you don't want him taking at bats away from Bobby Bradley when Bobby Bradley's starting to figure it out at the big league level. I would agree with that. So there's two outfielders that are intriguing, and they're kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. You have Adam Duvall. I believe it's $3 million, or it's either $2 or $3 million, and then he has a $7 million mutual option for the team. He's with the Marlins. And then another one that's even more interesting is Brian Reynolds, outfielder from the Pirates. He's under team control through 2025. What that means, you're going to have to give up some significant prospects or more prospects. Do either of those fit kind of what the Indians might be looking at?
Honestly, I think year after year, just outfielders in general always seem to fit whatever they're needing. They always just seem to be a little bit short-staffed in the outfield department, and looking at any type of outfielder, I think, has the potential of being it. I really do like Brian Reynolds. I think he's really intriguing, and I think that it could work. But like you said, it would take some haul back to Pittsburgh to be able to make that deal happen. But they sort of have a stacked farm system, especially in the middle infield. They have a tremendous number of really talented middle infielders that are really around the same age. So if you start thinking about, okay, when are these guys going to be playing, if they're all around the same age, and where would they go? And I think that gives them a little bit of wiggle room of maybe one of those guys could be someone who would headline a return package for a rebuilding team like the Pirates. I think that's definitely an option. I know that the Indians still think so highly of Tyler Freeman, and I mean, they have a plethora of middle infielders. So I do think that they could find something in there to put a package together, but it would just be whether or not they're willing to put together everything that Pittsburgh would want in return, because we just don't know how much that they would be asking for that type of a trade.
And the last one is a starting pitcher, Kyle Gibson. It's I think it's $7 million this year and $9 million next. So there's control under that. He's pitching well. Again, the question becomes, do you bring him in? You're going to have to give up some sort of prospects. And does it block somebody that you really like and want to see get at the major league level?
Yeah, it seems weird to be talking about the Indians needing starting pitching for like the first time in however many seasons now. So it's a weird perspective heading into the trade deadline, knowing that they really do need some help starting wise. I know that Bieber and Plesac and Savali, they're keeping everything crossed that all these guys could be back in the rotation by the end of the month, if not the beginning of August, and hopefully all that could work out. But I mean, even after that, they still have so many questions. They have the last two spots of the rotation that they could really bolster if needed. And Gibson's interesting because he's probably going to be the biggest name starter out there for this trade deadline that could possibly be moved. So it wouldn't be surprising to see some interest from multiple different teams. I don't know if they would actually make that deal or not, but so it would be interesting to see if the Indians would be able to compete with any other interest that would be out there, just because he is technically going to be probably the biggest name out there. And if they'd be willing to part ways with any of their prospects like that, the prospects that it would take to get that type of a pitcher back in Cleveland. So it'd be interesting to see if that plays out, or if they try to see if they can get maybe a lower level type of an arm that would give them some interest and maybe intrigue them a little bit, and they can work their Indians Cleveland pitching factory magic on them like they seem to have done for so many different guys, and figure out someone else and maybe not as big as Gibson.
Mandy Bell, Indians beat reporter for Indians.com as well as MLB.com. As always, Mandy, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, Mandy Bell, Indians beat reporter. Make sure you read her, Indians.com as well as MLB.com. That'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. Scheduled guests tomorrow, the D-Man, Dennis Maniloff, and Tim Bielik, Cleveland.com and Plain Dealer reporter. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow. Sports for CLE.